a tiny startup most people have never heard of just hit a $30 billion valuation. And right now, engineers inside the most valuable private company on Earth are quietly using it to help build rockets. The company is called Cursor. The rocket builder is SpaceX. And the connection between them tells you everything about where the money is flowing in 2026. Let's rewind. Cursor isn't a household name like NVIDIA or Tesla. It's a coding tool, a piece of software that helps programmers write code faster by using artificial intelligence. Sounds boring, right? But here's the twist. In just a few years, this little app exploded into one of the fastest growing software companies the tech world has ever seen. The company behind Cursor is called AnySphere. It was started by a small group of young engineers, many of them barely out of college. They had a simple idea. What if writing software felt less like typing and more like having a conversation? What if an AI could read your entire project and finish your thoughts before you did? That idea hit a nerve. Programmers everywhere started downloading Cursor. Word spread on social media, in group chats, in office Slack channels. Engineers were saying the same thing over and over. This thing is magic. It's like coding with a partner who never sleeps and never gets tired. And the revenue numbers backed up the hype. Cursor's annual revenue reportedly blew past hundreds of millions of dollars in record time. Some reports say it became one of the fastest companies in history to reach that milestone. Investors smelled blood. Venture capital firms started throwing money at AnySphere. And with each new funding round, the valuation didn't just climb. It skyrocketed. First it was a few billion, then 10 billion. Then the rumors started flying about a deal valuing the company at $30 billion. $30 billion. For a company that, just a couple years earlier, barely existed. That's more than many famous brands you grew up with. And it all came from a coding tool that lives inside your laptop. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Because a $30 billion valuation only makes sense if real, serious companies are actually using your product, and not just hobbyist coders in their bedrooms. We're talking about giants, banks, tech firms, and yes, according to multiple reports, even aerospace companies pushing the limits of human engineering. Which brings us to SpaceX, Elon Musk's rocket company, the same SpaceX that, in 2026, became one of the most talked about names on Wall Street. The company that recently soared past Amazon in market value during a retail buying frenzy. The company everyone is racing to own a piece of. That SpaceX runs on code. Mountains of it. Think about what it takes to land a rocket. The booster comes screaming down from the edge of space. It has to slow itself, balance itself, and touch down on a tiny platform in the ocean. All of that is controlled by software. Millions of lines of it, written, tested, and refined by some of the best engineers alive. And those engineers are humans. They get tired. They make typos. They spend hours hunting for tiny bugs in massive code bases. That's exactly the problem Cursor was built to solve. A tool that reads your code, understands it, and helps you move faster without breaking things. For a company shipping rockets, faster and safer code is worth a fortune. So when an AI tool starts spreading through the engineering teams at companies building the future, the valuation suddenly makes sense. Cursor isn't selling a toy. It's selling speed. It's selling productivity. And in a world where every tech company is in an arms race to ship faster, speed is the most valuable currency there is. But let's zoom out, because this story is bigger than one app. Cursor is riding the biggest wave in modern business, the artificial intelligence boom. The same wave that pushed NVIDIA from $12 billion to trillions. The same wave that has Wall Street talking about new buzzwords and chasing the next giant winner. Right now in 2026, the stock market is in what some experts are calling a manic phase. The Dow just notched a new record high. The S&P keeps climbing. Margin debt jumped 8.5% in a single month to a record. Everyone wants in, and AI is at the center of all the excitement. In that kind of environment, a hot AI startup with explosive growth becomes a magnet for money. Investors aren't just buying Cursor's current revenue. They're betting on a future where AI writes most of the world's software. If that future arrives, the company sitting at the center of it could be worth far more than $30 billion. But here's the contrast that makes this story so dramatic. Cursor is tiny compared to SpaceX. SpaceX is valued in the trillions. It builds physical machines that fly to space. Cursor builds software you can't even touch. Yet both are caught in the same storm of hype, money, and impossible expectations. And both could be incredibly fragile. Why fragile? Because Cursor has a dangerous problem hiding under all that success. It doesn't fully own the most important piece of its own technology. The powerful AI models that make Cursor feel magical are built by other companies, giants with deep pockets and their own ambitions. Cursor is, in a sense, renting its superpowers. Imagine building a $30 billion empire on top of an engine you don't control. If the companies that make those AI models decide to raise prices or launch their own competing coding tools, Cursor could be squeezed overnight. It's the classic startup nightmare. You ride a giant's shoulders until the giant decides it wants your seat. And the giants are already circling. Some of the biggest names in tech have launched their own AI coding tools. They have billions to spend, armies of engineers, and direct control over the underlying models. For a young company like Cursor, the competition isn't just intense. It's existential. Every day, the race gets tighter. So how does Cursor survive? The answer is speed and loyalty. The team behind it moves incredibly fast, shipping new features constantly. And engineers who use it tend to love it. They build habits around it. Once a developer's whole workflow runs through Cursor, switching away feels painful. That loyalty is the moat protecting the empire. That's why companies like SpaceX matter so much to the story. When elite engineers at a world-changing company adopt your tool, it sends a powerful signal. If Cursor is good enough to help build rockets, it's good enough for everyone else. The kind of credibility is worth far more than any advertising campaign money can buy. Now picture the scene inside SpaceX. Engineers are working on Starship, the massive rocket Musk wants to send to Mars. The pressure is enormous. Deadlines are brutal. Every line of code could mean the difference between a successful launch and a fireball. In that environment, anything that makes the work faster and safer is a weapon. That's the quiet revolution happening right now. AI tools like Cursor are slipping into the workflows of the most ambitious companies on the planet. Not with a loud announcement, but through the keyboards of the engineers who actually build things. And as those tools prove their value, their makers get richer and more powerful by the month. Meanwhile, Wall Street is watching all of this with hungry eyes. The SpaceX rally has dominated headlines. Retail investors are racing to buy shares. The stock has gained for days straight in what some are calling a meme stock fire. Everyone wants exposure to the future, and AI is the spark lighting the whole thing up. But not everyone is convinced. The famous investor Michael Burry, the man who predicted the 2008 housing crash, recently said he was tempted to bet against SpaceX. He thought the stock had gone too far, too fast. In the end, he passed, calling the options too expensive. Even the doubters can't easily fight this rally. And that tension is the heart of this whole moment. On one side, you have believers screaming that AI will change everything, and these companies will be worth unimaginable sums. On the other, you have skeptics warning that the market is complacent, facing a litany of risks and primed for a painful fall. Both sides have real arguments. Here's what's undeniable, though. The money is real. Anysphere, the maker of Cursor, has raised enormous sums from some of the smartest investors in the world. Those investors don't write $30 billion checks for fun. They believe coding is being transformed forever, and they want to own the company at the center of that change. And the use case is real too. Software runs the modern world. Your bank, your phone, your car, and yes, the rockets flying to space. If a tool can make writing that software dramatically faster, the economic value is almost impossible to measure. That's the bet. That coding itself is being reinvented before our eyes. So what happens next? There are a few paths. In the best case, Cursor keeps growing, locks in its loyal users, and eventually goes public in a blockbuster IPO that mints a new generation of millionaires. The $30 billion valuation becomes a footnote on the way to something much, much larger. In the darker case, the giants crush it. A bigger company builds a better tool, bundles it for free, and the magic fades. The valuation collapses, the investors lose, and Cursor becomes a cautionary tale about building too fast on borrowed power. In the AI gold rush, Both stories are completely possible. What makes this fascinating is how it mirrors SpaceX itself. Musk's company also faces enormous risk. It loses money on some operations. It burns cash on Starship. Yet investors value it in the trillions because of what it might become. Cursor and SpaceX are both bets on the future, not the present. Both are stories about belief. And belief is the most powerful force in markets right now. One analyst is calling for the S&P 500 to soar to 9,000. Talk of a melt-up is everywhere. In moments like this, money rushes toward the boldest visions of tomorrow. Cursor, riding the AI wave and powering rockets, fits that vision perfectly. But remember the lesson of every boom. The same enthusiasm that lifts a company to 30 billion can vanish in a heartbeat. Markets that feel unstoppable are often the most dangerous. The smartest move isn't to blindly believe or blindly doubt. It's to understand the story, the risks, and the forces driving the numbers. And the story of Cursor is one of the clearest windows into this entire moment. A tiny tool, a $30 billion dream. Engineers at SpaceX using it to help reach the stars. It captures the hope, the hype, and the heart-pounding risk of the AI era all in one wild package. So next time you hear about SpaceX hitting another record, remember the invisible layer underneath. The software, the tools, the companies like Cursor quietly powering the machines that grab the headlines. The real money story isn't always the loud one. Sometimes it's the small company hiding inside the giant, growing richer with every line of code. That's the story of Cursor and SpaceX. A $30 billion bet, a $1 trillion partner, and a future nobody can predict for sure. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want more dramatic money stories about the companies and people shaping our world, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We've got more wild stories coming. See you in the next one.